things. I've done this workshop quite a number of times recently because it's really just introducing you to all the different things that we have to help you write your grants. And so if I can get there we go. First of all, I just want to do an introduction of our team. And so I am Virginia Kearney, and I do the editing support. I do the grant writing training. I create the toolkits, and I'm really here to help you make the grant that you write more competitive. That's my job, whatever way I can. But I'm going to let Stacy go ahead. She's on the Teams line to tell us a little bit about herself and her role.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Stacy Smith. I'm the Assistant Vice Provost of Research for Research Development. So we are all on the OVPR team, and we're really excited that you're here. I've been at Baylor maybe 7 years. I was a director of research for a nonprofit for military families, and then I was at A&M before that. So really happy to be here. I love working at Baylor. I love all of the faculty that we work with. They're wonderful people, and it's just exciting. So I'm excited you're here, and I want to make sure you are connected to Virginia because she is our darling, our university darling. And she will not tell you this, but especially if you're looking at like career grants, she's in the 90 percentile or like 90% success rate and working with those. So just all of the things. But anyway, I'm really excited. I have the most wonderful team, and we're just glad that we were able to take some time out today on a Friday to meet with us. Thank you.
And Sherry, are you on the call?
I am.
Okay.
But you know my computer.
Just go ahead and talk. I think I have the microphone in here working.
Okay. I'm Sherry DeHay. You can hear me. And I am the research impact specialist. So I help with broader impacts, and I have lots of experience in schools in the community because we've lived here for a long while, and I've taught for a while. And I also worked at the Mayborn for 10 years. So we have lots of connections at the Mayborn as well. But I'm here to help you do broader impacts. So please reach out if I can help.
And Blake?
Hi, I'm going to unmute myself. Hi, I'm Blake Thomas. That sounds very distracting. All right. I work with our postdoctoral scholars. I also do a lot of other things related to science outreach. We have a video intern graduate student that I supervise who helps with video content related to grant proposals and research projects. So if y'all have needs for any of those, we're happy to help with that. But yeah, thank y'all for being here.
I don't know what I did on that.
No, it's fine.
Gonna work that. I'm gonna probably have you go ahead and mute yourself, Blake, because I'm not sure. We have this problem with our team meetings all the time too. So we'll go through a little bit more on some of the things that we do. We'd really already had this talking about that. Well, the goal of my department, the goal of our department, we're a small group of 4, is to support faculty. It looks like everybody on the call is really and here in the room or early career just came to Baylor. My first priority is to support faculty, early career faculty, in writing competitive proposals and getting that grant that is either required for tenure or would make tenure a lot nicer. I think like communication and journalism hasn't traditionally required that. They require now I think they require at least submitting a grant, but a lot of people really require that money to do the work, and you can do a lot better work when you get the money. So that's really my first goal. And I thought that I was working mostly with early career faculty until I just did an analysis and found out from the 170 or so faculty that I've worked with, it's been about half early career and half tenured faculty. And our second goal, especially as Stacy and I started working in about 2018, as we kind of she put the office together a little earlier, and then I joined in 2017, 2018, is to not only support early career faculty, because we were getting a whole new crop of rising star faculty that have been hired that should be able to do well in research. But there were a lot of faculty who were here who had maybe either done research and gotten grants previously, or maybe they'd gotten tenure without doing a lot of grant writing because that wasn't required back then, but they really were doing good research. And so we really wanted to restart some of them on getting grants. And that has been really very rewarding and very successful, actually. And so that's why we worked with that team as well. Ultimately, with both groups, our goal is number 2 is to help the faculty achieve career funding success, which is more than just getting that first grant. And this is what had happened to some faculty previously at Baylor. They'd gotten that first grant to get tenure, but then they just didn't get the traction to be continually funded. And that's really our goal, is to make sure you're on a trajectory in that way. Choosing the best first grants to go for, to make sure that you're moving your career for funding forever. Because my husband's been here, and he was one of those faculty who had lost funding after a while and then really searched around. So I personally understand the difficulty of that. And so I have it as well, not only for my job, but also just a personal passion that I want to help people have the kind of career that they want. So what is a competitive proposal? We have two different models that we use. One is from Peg Atkinson. I have one of her books here, and I suggest that you might want to consider getting her book. There are a lot of them here at Baylor, or you can order it. That's a link through the website. I'll be handing you the PowerPoint once we're finished with the presentation. And she says it's a good idea packaged so it's easy to understand. It addresses a problem that reviewers and funders care about. And it's absolutely true. You have to hit on all three of those. Good idea, easy to understand. They understand it. My husband just got a review back, and it was quite clear they didn't completely understand what he was doing. So that's where he has to fix on it, what he needs to fix on his rewrite. And then it has to be a problem that fits that funder and fits that that solicitation, but also the general goals and mission of that particular funder. So I love Peg's overview, but I also really like the one from our new faculty guide. That is a free ebook that's the link, so you can just download it. We have a Baylor subscription to that. And that is really, what reviewers want to see are these 5 questions. What is it you propose to do? Why is it important? Why are you the one who should be doing it? How are you going to do it? That's your methods or approach. And then how does that work advance the research interests of two things? The agency, the funder, just like we talked about in the first definition, and then your field in general. And maybe it also addresses needs in other fields, or if you're talking about NSF, they also want to know, like, how is this going to meet a societal need in some way? So that's our overview of where we're going. It's where we always come, it's where we start from usually. I ask, usually when someone comes to talk to me about a grant, I like them to try to answer those questions, and it's a really good way to start thinking, like being able, how would I put those parts together? All of that has to be in your one pager that you're going to be sending to a program officer to look at, or you're passing it around to friends to be able to get some feedback on it. It's also just something I look at as we go through the end of that grant review process. Have we addressed all of these well? So that's where we're going. And they are the 4 different ways that our team, I'm going to talk a little bit about the other grant teams just to make sure you see in context what we do, but focusing really on what our team of 4 people helps you with. And one is personal help, which is just for you as an individual researcher, and also you as you work with a collaborative group. I'm going to talk about our grant writing resources. I'm just going to give an overview of them. I'll show you them on Box. Most of them are on Box or else on our website. So I have slides on it, but then I really want to go so you can kind of see it, and you'll have all the links to get there. And then grant writing training, which is like this. I have a lot of other workshops I've given that are all on the PowerPoints you can download. I have some of them are PowerPoints with embedded videos in them. So you click on the video and talking just like you do now. And we're also trying to do, as in this case, we're trying to record them so they're available that way. We also have the books that a couple that I just showed you, and I have our Baylor Grant Writing Handbook, which I'm giving a copy to the people here, and anyone that's online that would like one, we'll see if we can get one to you. And then broader impacts resources, which is really Sherry. We were able to hire Sherry just 2 years, a year and a half ago. Yeah, and which is terrific because she's able to head up that. And our team went through training with an NSF funded ORC. I don't remember what that stands for, which is in charge of really helping people to do broader impacts better, talking about, how do you make your research go in and share it with people in society, but also talk about why your particular research is impactful for society. And we have a lot of different resources and ideas that came from our training, and we make that available as well. In fact, our Baylor handbook has a whole section on that. So first of all, I want to talk about personal help. And I do want to emphasize, if you need help at any stage of the grant, our group is the one that really tries to help you. And please just email us if you have a question. I got a question actually last night, I think, it was 7 o'clock. And I did check my email before bed, and it was a quick answer. And so I just gave him the link to that. Now, we don't necessarily always work on weekends or after hours, but if I see it, I know his grant is due. And so I totally understand. Oh, I'm glad you're able to come on over. Yeah, grab something. I live with a researcher who is often telling me at 10 o'clock at night, will you please review my grant? It's like, in fact, all last weekend he was talking about his grant, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I feel like I'm working all weekend. But I understand that might be the only time you have to work on it, and it's due on Monday, as this one was. So we really try to help you. But anyway, so here's some things that we do to help you. First of all, I offer team consults where I just, usually it's on Teams, sometimes it's in person, where we just talk about what you're doing, your plans. If you have questions, often if it's small questions, it's easier to email me. We talk about several things, any specific grant you want to discuss, but also career strategy, especially for people that are all starting. What are the grants you can do, and what should you start with? And one thing that I found, I just did a couple of meetings last week, and really got me thinking, is it was someone in communications. I think there was another person in journalism I looked at recently, and this particular person was not really thinking about NSF because didn't think that she qualified. But as we really looked at what research she did, I realized, yes, you absolutely do. And that's a great, the NSF career grant is a great one to get started with. So I also do editing. So I edit documents at any stage where you need help. And what I do is, of course, I do the grammar editing. If someone is a non first English speaker, then I'm very happy to just review just with an eye for grammar errors, content errors. But mostly what I really try to do is to see, can I make this grant clearer? Can I make this grant, maybe the sentences in the grant, a little bit shorter so you have more room to put your work in? Because usually it's hard to fit everything in. Can I make it more competitive? And I edit probably 50 to 60 grants a year, and I've done that for 7 or 8 years. And so I think it's like 400 grants. So I was an English writing instructor. I also had a business writing where I did a lot of sales, which has actually been really helpful because I know how to sell things. I also know how to condense things. So all of that amount of practice has helped me to really have a pretty good eye for what will make your grant sell a little bit better. And that's really what you're trying to do, is to make it clear and make sure that you're able to make them understand why your grant is significant. So that's what I try to do. And I do most of my things sometimes I will rewrite on the grant depending on the time. If it's tight time, I may just do that so you can get it out tomorrow. A lot of times, so I try to do it in comments on the side with maybe a suggested rewrite of what you should do or how you could make this a little bit better. I often am drawing on the other grants that I've edited. Like, I know this person had this section in this, there was something about, the methodology when they did this section. So maybe, look and see if that's something you need. So that's kind of the work it comes from. We also answer questions, and Stacy is the master of this because she usually knows. We just had one happen last week where I put together everything I knew, but I didn't think it was an answer to the question I asked Stacy. She knew who to ask and got right to the person who was able to provide the document that was needed. So that is really helpful. And then, just as I've been talking about now, we like to connect you, whether it's a collaborator, a consultant, or a resource. We try to find someone that can help you. And the broader impacts, that's really where Sherry works. And that is, it's specifically an NSF program, but there are a lot of grants now that are requiring faculty to think about how their work goes into the community. And it's also related to a lot of the new diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility. There's a lot of different names for those. They started out by asking people to just talk about how they were doing that in their lab. Now I see a lot of agencies looking to see how can you go into the community and work with the community. And so that really relates to broader impacts. We also can call it research impacts, so that it's not just NSF, but it's other things. And if you're doing anything that involves education, that's also under that guideline. Along with helping individual faculty, it's not moving. Okay, right there. Oh, sorry, went back too far. There we go. We also work with teams and do collaborative proposals. And this is an initiative we're working on a little bit more now, but these things that we already do for a team. So if you're working with collaborators here or elsewhere, we often that involves a grant toolkit that maybe I don't already have. It's usually often an unusual toolkit. I have all the normal grants that people do all the time, but if this is a team collaborative grant, it often is something specific. And so I'm happy to create a whole toolkit for what you need on that. And then we also, if it's helpful, we can facilitate proposal team meetings. And that can be just making sure everybody, being there when everybody gets together. Sometimes we've attended the team meetings and taken minutes. That actually has been really helpful a couple of times when everyone's busy talking about things and we're able to kind of give that overview and that update afterwards. We send that follow-up email with what the team talked about, and then along with that, providing the resources that we have that can help the team to implement what they were talking about. We don't do that real often, but it's available if it's something that you feel like you need. We also, again, can connect your team with resources, not only here at Baylor, but sometimes in the local community where we're seeking. One of the things that Sherry's been working on is, developing more and more resources and connections with people, and not just at the Mayborn, but the different local school districts. We have, through some of our other grants, connections with the city of Waco, and some other. We also know of people around Baylor who have connections with different groups, whether it's at Baylor Scott and White or so if you're looking for a connection, we won't always be able to do that, but we can certainly try to help you find out someone who has done that before. Editing for consistency, clarity, conciseness, competitiveness, especially if you have multiple authors working on something, that can help. And then providing photo and video support. That's really one of the things that Blake Thomas, we also does, and he supervises our video intern that we have. We've just gotten a new one in that I think is going to do a great job for us. And then broader impact support, as I discussed. So our grant writing resources, I'm going to go through these slides, and then I'm going to take you online so you can kind of see them for yourself. But before I talk about what our resources are, I want to make sure you're aware, probably in the new faculty workshop, they might have gone through these, but I want to some of them you may not have, especially Casey's. Casey is, moving my it's out of the way there. Casey Ashenfelter is somebody you should know about. He is in charge of corporate and foundation relationships. So Baylor has certain relationships with certain corporate sponsors or foundations like the Waco Foundation, but there's a selection of other ones. So any grant that is going to those foundations needs to go through Casey because he's the one who decides. Usually, a lot of times they have a limited submission policy where they only will take 1 grant or 2 grants a year, and he's the one that kind of decides and works with who's going to be submitting that. But he's also helpful in several other ways. He can help. He has the foundation. Foundation Directory, which is an online resource that talks about each foundation and what kinds of awards they've previously given. And so he can look up the foundation you're interested in applying to and see whether they've awarded grants to Baylor or what kinds of awards or how much the awards are. Because sometimes you go on a website and they say they'll fund all these different kinds of things. A lot of small foundations do this, and maybe they do, but for the most part, what they've actually, or like they're interested in that, but what they really fund is this particular area. And you want to make sure that when you're spending the effort to write a proposal, that you're sending something that's going to meet what they're actually going to be interested in funding. So he can help you with that. If you are doing something that requires specific Baylor documents or signatures, like the provost signature, he's responsible for that. And he also has this request for assistance form. So if you want him to look for some foundation funding for you, he doesn't have a huge capacity for that, but he will work with you. And I know he has helped some people also. So he's somebody that's a good resource. I'm not going to go through all this, but the research compliance is another branch of OVPR, and they take care of human subjects research and vertebrate animals research safety. There's a training that you need to take and forms you need to fill out. So if that's something that you do, all these links will go to those specific web pages. And a lot of times people, early career people, are thinking about this first year is kind of getting their lab set up, your research set up, doing your teaching, and then kind of thinking about doing the grant writing maybe in your second year or in the summer. And then there's some things that you can do while you're getting everything else set up. And one is to make sure that your compliance forms are completed. And sometimes that takes longer than you'd expect. My husband's trying to get this one strain of bacteria, and he's found he has to get a Department of Agriculture approval. So he's working on that one. So you may have something like that you need to work on. I just want to point that out. If you have intellectual property or are interested in economic development and starting a business, then the Innovation and Economic Development Group can be helpful for you. And they've done a great job, especially if you have some patents. So I just put their website out there for you to look at. And then there's the university research administrators. And we like to think of them as the ones who do really the outside of the grant. They're the ones who offer services that help you to actually submit the grant. They use the CARA system, which is the new one here at Baylor that fills out forms for you. And it's the one that in some cases actually submits the grants for you. And they're the ones who help you with the budget. So our group doesn't really work with any budget work. We do pretty much, we'll help with, or the forms for the grant. We help with pretty much every other part, but not that part. There's a pre-award, a post-award URA, and the volume of grants that they've gotten has significantly increased. And so this group has been really stressed. I will tell you that because and it's difficult because they have had to move people around. Because all of a sudden, one department is now producing a lot more grants and their person is overwhelmed. So I can't tell you exactly who it is that is, usually they try to divide them by department, but they have been moving people around. So your best bet is to ask other people in your department who your URA is, or click on this URA assignments, which isn't always updated. I don't know, Blake's been in charge of helping keep that updated. So he's doing his best, but they've had to hire a lot of the people that are URAs because it's such a specialized skill set. They've hired people that are not here in Waco. And so a lot of times you'll do your work with team meetings. There are some people that are here. It's kind of a mix of things, but they really will help you both as you submit your award. And then you also need their help in post award after you hopefully get your award and you have to administrate all the things that all the money that comes with that. We are research development and we help with the inside of the grant. A lot of things I've already told you about and I'm going to show you in a moment. I do want to point out two parts I'm not really going to talk about. And one is the graduate student grant writing support. If you have graduate students, there is actually a great desire and the part of the graduate school to have more graduate students write grants. And because of that, they established this office for the Graduate Student External Grants Office. And I helped to set that up and create some tools for them. And then they actually have graduate students who are hired, usually ones that are in the Department of Education from the higher education school. I don't know exactly the name of their degree, that are supporting of that. And they do grant training on how to write grants and do some help, I think, with the editing and use some other tools. There's also, if your students do NSF GRFP awards, which is a terrific award. There is Bill Hockaday, who is has a position, I think he's assistant director, dean. I'm not sure exactly what his job is, but he's in the graduate school along with being the geology professor. He has a class for the GRFP for students. And that's a terrific class for them to take. He helps them to write the whole process. And then Blake supports our postdoctoral scholars program. They're doing postdoc appreciation week. And so if you have a postdoc, that's a good way to help them make sure that they are supported and have a successful time here. I'm not going to talk a lot about finding funding in this grant because I have this seminar because I have the Finding Funding workshop coming up next session in October. And you can sign up on this if you're going through the PowerPoint. But I do have links and I will be showing you in just a minute when we go on to the online section where these are of how you can go and find funders. We have curated funding. Our first job when Stacy and I came was to actually find funding for people because people hadn't been writing grants. They didn't know where to find funding. And so we started researching funding for individual faculty members. And finally, we realized, well, if you're in the Department of Journalism or you're in the department, Truett, there's certain funders that keep on coming up. And so we made them into lists by department. And some of them are cross-listed, obviously. And then that became really cumbersome to keep on updating all 33 lists. And so we created this master Excel list, which had been, we finally updated. It's a difficult list to update because I have to go through them all, but I just did this recently. We have about 300 curated funders, with the idea being that this would be a funder that probably would be possible for a Baylor faculty to apply to. So we try to eliminate all the things like they don't fund in Texas, they don't fund religious institutions, they don't fund certain other programs. And then I've also divided that list into STEM, humanities, postdocs, graduate students, so it's easier for people to look through. So that's just a place to start. This is primarily non-federal grants, so which are the harder ones to find. If you're doing a federal grant, then it's usually fairly easy once you find your agency to know what's available and how to keep updated with that. But these are a lot of foundation funders for you to look through. Then we have our Baylor internal funding. That's the link to that. And then Pivot and Grant Forward are our two subscribed search engines. And that's really what we'll be talking about along with grants.gov in the Finding Funding resources. This link at the top goes to our webpage that has all the training for those things. Then one of my big jobs is to create grant toolkits. So you're going to be writing your first grant. I'm just going to imagine it's an NSF career grant. It's one of our favorite ones for people to write. We have an almost 100% funding rate on this one if people are willing to work through it 3 times and use our help to get going. But we have grant toolkits for pretty much any NIH grant and many of the regular NSF grants. And if you're doing an NSF grant that I don't have a toolkit for, you just need to ask me and I'll put it together. That's once I have the toolkits going, it's not hard. I also have them for National Endowment of Humanities grants and some for Department of Energy, NASA, the Department of Defense, and a variety of other foundation funders too that we do pretty periodically. So what's in the grant is this, in the grant toolkit is a grant planner. The two main tools are this grant planner and a grant shell. The grant planner is an Excel document that has 6 tabs. The first one, probably the most important one, is the one I have pictured here, which is the grant component checklist, which has all the different parts of the grant that you need to do. And the important part about this is, this happened with my husband just recently. If you know him, you should say I'm telling stories, is he was working on his grant narrative so intensively and, working really hard on that main grant narrative of 15 pages. And then I kept on telling him, I think there's other things you need to get done on that grant, not just the grant narrative, there's other parts. And he said, oh, I think my URA, Tara, she's great. She's going to do those for me. And I said, I don't think so. And sure enough, he had a meeting with Tara, who was amazing, and she was not going to do his data management plan for him. So I said, but that's okay, because I have in my toolkit a template for you to use. And so that's what this is. So the grant component checklist helps you, especially on your first grant, to know all the different parts that you need to do. Helps you. There's a little check mark. Stacy put this together. Thank you, Stacy, which lets you, find out how much of it you've done. And so I have the list of the different components. I have the entry method. Is it a form? It says form. If it's a PDF upload, that's what it says. And I usually try to tell you what page it's uploaded to. I have the actual link to the instructions from the agency that you could go to. But I also have those instructions written right here under the notes section. And unless it's really, really, the instructions are so long, I really can't fit them in. I usually have all the instructions right there, so you could look at them as you go, so you know what that part is. And then I also have, if I have a guide or a template or a facilities page that's available, or something that I can help you with, then I have that listed here in a link. You can't see it right here, but on this side, I have who's responsible for it, the PI, the URA, the PI with the URA, or someone else. And I don't have it on this particular one, but on this side right over here, I usually have other information, like a PowerPoint from NSF that explains how to do that, or a link to the NIH staff in case you're looking for your program manager. So anything else is over here. So I do try to provide as many different kinds of links so you can kind of see it all at once. I also have a grant writing steps section I'll show you when we go online, a to-do checklist, some ways to keep track of your grant contacts. All the review criteria for that particular grant is listed on a separate tab, and then the formatting requirements. So if you use my next one that I'm going to talk about, which is my shell, it'll be formatted for you. But if you forget something or you just want to check, it's right there. And then usually, like if I have the formatting requirements in the Excel, I also have the link. So if you want to go straight to the website and double check it, which I sometimes do when I want to make sure everything's correct. So the second tool that I have is this grant shell, which is a Word document. I know not everyone writes in Word, but I use Word because that's easiest for me, but also because it allows me to do the comments on the side, and then I use it when I'm editing to track. So if you send me something that's in another format, I usually turn it into Word in order to edit it, and you'll have to kind of put those comments into if you use LaSix or some other system. So this one's in Word, and this is the Word document here, and it has in front of this part, it'll have a list of all the components, just like you saw that I have in the grant planner. I also have these listed on the grant shell, so you can kind of keep track of them. And then I have in the correct formatting all the different parts of the grant with the headers here, the things that you need to fill out. And then on the side in comments, I have, again, the links to the NSF instructions. And then I have links to any template. In this case, I happen to have an NSF project summary template that you can pull up and look at. And then all the instructions that come from NSF, which you can find online here, but they're already listed for you here. The point of the shell is actually the reason we started making these is I had a professor ask me for a template for an NSF grant. I said, I don't have a template for an NSF grant. What are you talking about? And then I realized when Stacy and I have been involved early on in actually writing grants, we had actually created something like this for ourselves because we were working together. We had to keep track of things. And I found it very confusing to look at. Most agencies have their overall document, the PAPG or the NIH application guides, and then you also have your solicitation information, which means you have and sometimes when you're looking at Department of Defense or Department of Energy, you have 2 or 3 some other things you're looking at. So I found it much easier if I'm doing the project summary to have everything in one spot. So I don't have it on this particular slide, but if there is some specific instructions for this particular grant that are different than the overall instructions for the agency, I have that in red and it's listed FOA specific instructions. And so everything you need to write your project summary or whatever other component is right here for you to look at back and forth. So those are my 2 main things, this grant planner and the grant shell. You don't have to use them, but if they're helpful to you, especially I think if you haven't written a grant before, a big grant, then this is I think useful for you. I have not shared this. Actually, I've had this information available, but I haven't actually shared it in a slide before. And I've had someone asking for the next 2 things that were in the next 2 slides that I realized probably I ought to let people know that this is here. On Box, and I will show it to you in a moment, I have Baylor grant awards. Because sometimes people want to know, I'm writing, and this happened, Karen was asking for this recently, I'm writing an R25 grant. Who at Baylor has ever gotten an R25 grant? Well, I have that information. It's from the NSF and NIH website. I actually am a little bit obsessive about this because when I click on NIH, it says, you come here often. I say, yes, I do, because I'm always excited. Maybe we got a new award this week. And when we do, I put it on my little list. So these are just Word documents, and they list all the grants that Baylor has had. With the NSF one, I actually have links that you can go straight to the abstract. And for some reason, I haven't done that with NIH, but you could look the person up yourself. And it basically, the point of this is you can kind of keep track of what kind of awards we've had here, find somebody who's had that award before. And I must say that I don't think I've ever had a time when someone has asked another professor at Baylor for a sample or help with a similar award that they've said no. In fact, usually they're very enthusiastic, and sometimes they want to collaborate. That happened to me just recently, where someone said, "Oh, actually, I wanted to do a new grant like that too. So let's work together." So, and for the arts and humanities faculty, I have this selected awarded grants, and this is from a lot of different agencies. It has all of the National Endowment of Humanities grants, which I have a link to where you could look at those also. But these are also a variety of other foundations. And this is not all of the arts and humanities grants that we've gotten, because that Some of them, the point of this list is to give you ideas of what you could do. Like, for example, I don't have the large Templeton Global Flourishing Grant because that is not one you could just apply for. You have there's a whole other system with Templeton. But these are ones that you could look at and say, oh, I didn't know I could get a grant for doing X. Maybe I'd like to do that. And here's somebody who did that already. Maybe I could talk to them about it. So, and then I also provide, so as you're getting ready to find your grants, you're going to want to see who at Baylor could help me on that. What are the grants have we ever gotten at Baylor? You also maybe, if you're looking at NSF and NIH, want to find out which directorate or organization should I be applying for, because sometimes it's offered by you might fit into a couple of different organizations or directorates or whichever they're called, depending on the agency. And the funding rate can be very different. Maybe it's 23% on one and it's 10% on the other. Maybe you want to apply to the 23% unless you decide really I fit better in the 10% one. So it's a way to kind of look through that. And this is available on the website, but I've downloaded the NIH one. The NSF is not really easy to download. It's an interactive website that you could go to. So you can kind of put in what you want to do and look at the different possible organizations to put it into. But I think that's really helpful. And I was asked questions about this, and I really didn't know myself until I started looking at it. And actually, it changed my some of my advice. I told people previously that because I'd heard at NIH conference that the RO3 mechanism was not a very good one. It had very low funding rates. Well, that is true in some agencies and some directorates, but it's not true in other ones. My husband just was applying for one and had a 23% funding rate. So that's something you need to check out. The other thing that you want to do as soon as you find a grant that you're interested in is to look at what other grants have been awarded. And I already told you that Casey can help you maybe if you're doing the foundation grant. Then I also have the links to these three main funders where you can put in your search keywords and find out what else has been awarded in there. And there are ways that I'll be talking about in the next seminar about how you can narrow those to find things that are really close to what you do. And we also provide the grant writing training. Obviously, this workshop, we provide some books. I've already talked about some of those and the PowerPoints in the video. But before I go into that, I want to go ahead and stop the sharing of that. And I'm going to share. Hello, everybody. I can see you again. I'm going to share my window if I can make sure I get to it. Got to make sure I have my glasses on so I can see it.
Virginia, Karen had a question about CIPRIT, the cancer grants. Do we have toolkits for any of the CIPRIT ones?
I do. Yes. And very happy to help you with that. But what I would say is, who was it that was asking?
Karen.
Okay.
Karen.
Yeah. Is because the CIPRIT comes up, it's one of those agencies that has different grants at different times. So if you want to do a grant from there, contact me about that. And you can look on my toolkits, which I'm just showing you now, and I might have one. But a lot of times, unless there's more than one person doing a grant, I may not have a toolkit for it. My husband has a CIPRIT, so I've done one for the high risk, high impact, and I think he had another one. So, but yeah, please contact me. And I want to emphasize that if there's not a toolkit there, I'm very happy to make one for you. I usually can make it within a day or two. It doesn't take me too long.
Okay, great.
Are there any other questions? Please, I didn't stop. Please stop and let me know, speak up if there's anything else. I wanted to show you, I think I'm going to show you first of all, and I lost it, so I'm going to go back over here, but that's all right. The OVPR website here under research offices, there's the research development, that's us. And this is where some of the things that we offer you are available. There's proposal development, which tells you that's where you would go to sign up for the grant writing training. I have some early career resources. That's mostly the NIH K01 and the NSF career grant. Here's the research impacts page, broader impacts. The find funding page is here, postdoctoral scholars. I'm going to click on the find funding page just briefly. This is where you can get links to the different agencies we have, the search engines we have. Here's where our curated funding list is, grants.gov, our internal funding, and then limited submissions. If you come up with a grant that says limited submissions on it, or you're not sure about it, then this is where it tells you the policy of what we can do. And you could always contact us to find out whether, and you want to contact as soon as you're interested in a grant to make sure it's not limited submissions and somebody else has already been chosen for that particular thing. And the curated lists, here's the master funding list. I have a little video that, and here's the link to go to it. Just to kind of show you how it works. And I have the all funders. And then we have, so I have the name of the sponsor website. I always have 2 links because funders will often change the link of a grant, but they don't change their webs generally. Although when I did this update, there were a few that had changed their whole website. So if you can't find the grant on this instead of having an individual grant that I'd had previously, this is their main page for grants. And then you could also look at their website. I tried to give a description of the kinds of things that they fund so that hopefully you could go through here and pick ones that would work for you. And then I talk about eligibility over here and the amount of funding that's available. What I found that was really interesting to me as I did this update is I did not realize that most funders have funding for pretty much every stage. So that to me was very interesting and helpful because like the CIPRIT, you could start with CIPRIT and get some funding when you're early career and then move on later too. So I think that that's actually helpful. And the one thing that I also think is helpful is we have the postdoc and the graduate student funding here. There's 2 graduate student ones because there's one that I did and then one that the graduate student who's in charge of the external funding office did, and I haven't merged them yet. There is also funding for undergraduate, and there was a lot more funding for undergraduates than I realized. So if you work with undergraduates who are interested in funding, I would like more people to just let their undergraduates know this is available. You don't necessarily have to help them with it, but actually my daughter is working now with a student group, and she said, my job's the funding chairman. I need to write a grant. And I said, oh, okay. I said, well, I'll help you find some grants because all of these resources for finding funding are available to anyone who has a Baylor email. So the undergraduates can use it too. So I want to go over and show you my grant toolkits for faculty page. And this is I have about 500 things in here, so there's lots of files, but hopefully they're not too hard to find. Even if they are hard to find, I have an index here and I'll send you the link to the index. Most of the time I update it pretty often. If anything, there may be more on the index than I usually have. And that gives you direct links to different things. Excuse me. Probably the most used part of my funding kit is this facilities page. It is has all the facilities information you could need. It's a template so that I think there's a way I can make this height separate. There we go. It has regularly updated information about Baylor. It has information about all the departments. And actually I'm waiting with bated breath, probably no one else is, for finding out what are the new student numbers, because all my toolkits need to be changed I'm going to get the new student numbers. I do them just in fall because there's a common data set that is used across the nation. So that's the comparative data set. And so we haven't gotten them quite yet, but I'll be changing those out. So you can see as you look at it, I have gray parts, and that's the part that I will be updating. And I pointed out for myself, but also for other people, because I don't want you submitting a grant from one that you downloaded last year when there's actually a new updated version of it. Then there's also parts that I haven't read, and that means that's something that you have to decide. I did just update this a couple days ago about the new Baylor Indeed strategic research plan. So it helps if you can explain how your research fits into Baylor Indeed's. And then in the comments, I have a link to going to Baylor Indeed, so you could look through that and figure out what part of that fits your research, the language that you might want to put in. And there's information about diversity. There's information about undergraduate education, graduate education, and then all of the departments, student support, undergraduate student support. We have a lot of that here at Baylor that's really helpful to add in. And then I also have lots of facilities and equipment, different pieces of equipment that is available for me to download online, or else that I found because I've found them in other grants And I've been able to put that here. So if you need a piece of equipment and you're going to use it and it's here at Baylor, I have the information you can write up about that. If it's not here, then just ask me, because I actually have a lot of other information I have stored aside, and I can hopefully find something for you or find the person who can give you that information. So that's the facilities page. The other probably most used section is this letters template page. So if you are writing, the most common thing would be a chair letter or a dean letter. It's a template. You need them to write you a letter. It's much better if you write the letter for them and say, oh, this is just kind of an idea of what you want. I want you to write. They'll usually just sign it because they don't want to have to work that hard. I've decided that that's probably the best way to have students' recommendations. Have them write the recommendation letter and then you sign it. You know, you can always change it if you feel like it's not completely accurate, but and I realized as I opened this up this morning, I have not updated these on the strategic aim, so I'll have to work on that too. But anyway, it gives you an idea. And so those are two sections of it. And then, of course, as I've already talked about, I have the grant toolkit. So I want to show you that just a little bit. We're coming to the end, so I don't want to spend too much time. But so for NSF, I have the REU, the RAPID, the MRI, the career, which is the one that's. So here's the career toolkit page. So you have a workshop that I have just on the career. I have my grant planner, which is really what I showed you a minute ago, which has lots of links here, the components, and the responsibilities, any guides that I have, the grant writing steps, which kind of tell you what to do and when. And here's some more information that you can have. And I think I've just gone through some of those other ones. And then I also have the grant shell. You can see that there's up here, I have the links to the different solicitations, the directorates, the toolkit, and this is very helpful, the career award search, because this gives you a direct link to just career awards on their website, and then you can keyword search to get something that actually fits previously awarded grants within your particular directorate or your particular, you know, whatever keywords you want to put in. And then just kind of what I showed you before on the project summary, project description. This, of course, will be your main part of the grant. I have kind of an overall idea. And as you can see, this one particularly has some red parts of it because that's specific just for the career grant. And that differentiates it from the information that would come straight from the PAPG, which is their major guide that they have. And then I also, in this particular case, have specific guides because the career has a very specific letter that needs to be written by the department chair. So I have a template for that of, you know, which is all of these templates are based on previous letters that someone else had done or ones that I found online. And along with sometimes having these actual templates, I'll have a guide for specific parts of grants, like how should something, here's a career guide, like how should the education plan be written? What are some tips for it? And that's usually taken from my experience with other people's grants, but also I've gone through a lot of different writing handbooks. I've done a lot of different seminars at NSF. I've read online guides that people have. And so all of these things are taken together and put together. And I try to make it as simple and as clear and as short as possible by taking hundreds of pages and putting it in a short way. That's actually what I did in my business writing career, is try to make it a little bit shorter for you to read through. So the kinds of things that I have, I think I better, I think just one last thing I wanted to show you that's online is our funder list. I showed you the master funder list, but we have the ones that I have done for specific departments, like here's the nursing funders. And it's just helpful, even that this particular one happens to have been updated more recently. But if you want to go through these and find out, do some of these work for you? That's kind of a first step in trying to find funding, I think, along with looking at our internal funding, looking at these particular curated lists, and then you could do your searching for funding on whether I actually have a list of all that you talked about. I think someone here talked about Texas funding, or someone online did. And I have a list of all the, in my funding workshop, all the different grant search engines for specific Texas grants. So that's another way you can look through, or through our pivot and grant forward search engines that we'll be talking about. So I'm going to stop sharing there and go back. Are there any questions while I'm going back to finish my slideshow? And I'm actually running out of time, so I'm going to have to try to get this quick. Does anyone have anything? Okay. And I'll certainly be around to take questions at the end too. So we have our grant writing books, the Baylor Grant Writing Handbook, which people have gotten here in the room, and I'm very happy if you ask before, maybe we can get one for you, like a hard copy one we have here in our office. But it's all online with a PDF version, and that's actually probably the easiest way to use it, because it has links. The Baylor Grant Writing Handbook, most of it has been created from those guides and templates that I have on Box. They were individual documents that put together in a book. I do have some overall views that are helpful to you too. And I'll look at a few of them in just a minute. And then I have a Baylor Arts and Humanities grant writing booklet, which is specifically for a lot of NEH and foundation grants. We also have this ebook, the New Faculty Guide for Competing for Research Funding, and then the Peg Atkinson's book, which is not one we can give away, but this is a link. I think it costs $60 to $70. It's a great grant writing handbook. We used to have Peg come and give grant writing seminars here, but we really find that I think her handbook is better because you can use it as you're writing your grant. It really focuses primarily on NSF and NIH grants and how to write different sections of it. I've tried to take a lot of information from lots of resources, including these ones here in my grant writing handbook, to really give a simple version of the main things you need to work on. So if you have the handbook, I think I'm going to try to go online, but these are some of the different parts of it. I wanted to show you. I have just 2 minutes. Let me make sure I'm going to go through. I'm just going to go through this workshops, then I'll go last and I'll talk about the handbook and show you a little bit of it. So here's some of my other ones that are online that are available. I have the STEM workshop series. These are all a little bit, an hour, a little bit less. And in the video version, you can just go through the PowerPoints if you want to. And then the Arts and Humanities, which is in video. It's also PowerPoints. And then these are my more recent workshops that I did this year in the spring. And I'm adding, the workshops we're doing this year are just going to be 1 hour each. We just felt that was easier for people to go through and easier to attend. And then our broader impacts, I'm just going to go really quickly on some things that we do on that. We are going the wrong direction. I don't know where I'm going. I could do this. Okay. Okay, there we go.
Well, we can follow up with everyone and send the PowerPoint and any other kind of salient points.
I really have already talked about. We're going to have a broader impacts workshop, and that really specifically goes through things that we've done here at Baylor. We have about 30 different broader impacts ideas that can be put together in order to create your plan. Some parts of those can be put together. And this next slide just had one sample. This is kind of our basic plan, where we would have your lab receive Portal to the Public training, which is how to present your science to the public. And you do that at the Mayborn Museum. It's been an NSF funded program. And through that, and after that, you create a science activity with your group, and then you would present that science activity at the Mayborn Museum or perhaps in a local school nearby. We work with Connolly Middle School a lot of times in doing these, and there's several different opportunities that you can do that throughout the year. And then finally, after you've done that, maybe a year or two, first year or two of the grant, then you would create some science videos, a Meet the Scientist video, and this is an example of one above that we did with Vincent Leung. And then a STEM activity video, and I have a link to that particular STEM activity video that worked with his particular Meet the Science video. And then we create curriculum, and Sherry and Stacy and I have helped to create that curriculum. We post it online, so it's a national impact and nationally available. And then finally, what we've been working on recently is during National STEM Day or National Engineering Day, depending on which works best for your particular discipline, we have you go into a local school, you present your science, we help do the activity, and then the Baylor marketing comes in and does a video or an article follow-up, and then they promote you on the Baylor website. We've also created kits that have gone out to former Baylor alumni that are teachers and people in local communities. So that becomes something really a nice package of things that can go into an NSF grant. Just wanted to let you know kind of an overall view of that. Oh, and I have some final grant opportunities to consider. I'm going to be going over these a little bit more in our workshop, our final workshop. But before it's 101, I'm just going to, I'll take any questions that you have, but also wanted to go ahead and share the grant writing handbook really quickly. Meanwhile, if you're thinking of any questions you might want to ask, then I'm certainly, if you need to leave, I understand that sometimes people might need to do that. Thank you, Karen. It's been good to see you too. Right here is the grant writing handbook online. And it has, I start out, it's got a.
Can you share your screen, Virginia?
Oh, sorry, not sharing my screen. Thank you. Good to talk with you. Glad you're able to come. Thanks. Do you see it now? Can you see the screen? Is it? Is that on? Okay. Okay. It's not showing up.
Stop sharing.
Okay. I'll try one last time. Okay. Thank you for waiting. It has, you can click on these to go to the different sections. Really what I wanted to show you is this very first part is I have outlines of basic outlines of grants to show you all the different parts of it. And to show you how the different parts of different grants are very similar to one another. So you can kind of get an idea of the specific parts that you're going to need to do in each grant. And then after I've gone through the outlines, I have a section that really gives you an overview of how to write those different parts of the narrative, which is right here, like what you need to do when you're doing your specific aims. So a lot of times the one pager or a specific aims has different names in different agencies. It's sometimes called introduction or rationale or hypothesis, depending on what agency it is. But the instructions on how to do it and how you do it is very similar. And the reason I like to emphasize that is it helps you as you move from one agency to another to realize, oh, this is the kind of document I need to do. And sometimes you can take a grant you've written in one agency and maybe you didn't get funded and take it and move it to a different funder and find a way to put that out. I also have very specific information and guides and templates that are for NIH and other ones for NSF. And then the last thing I probably need to tell you is I have sample grants that I have links to in this, sample NIH grants, sample NSF grants, and that is helpful if you're looking for something, and a variety of other resources. I think that's probably, I'm out of my time, but I hope I will send the links to all of those to everybody on the call and make sure that you have a chance to look through this, but also some of the other things I have. So do you have any other questions? Anything else that I can help you with? And please let me know if you have anything, but I also welcome very much having a chance to have a one-on-one team meeting with you if you really just want to talk over your research or your plans for the future, and anything that you have any questions on or anything like that. So anything else that I can help you with? Otherwise, I'm 5 minutes past, but that's not too bad. All right,
thank you very much. This is Xiaoyu. Sorry, my camera is still not set up yet. Yeah, but I sent an email about, there is one of the a smaller grants that I'm writing. It's in the American Chemical Society. So this is just something. Yeah. But thank you very much for the very informative sessions. This is really helpful. Yeah.
Terrific. And I welcome being able to have a chance to talk with you. And especially I've done a lot of those kinds of grants before. So, and I'm talking about the bigger ones, but I also help with smaller grants. Any size is fine. So terrific. Welcome to Baylor. We're glad to have you here.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? It's been nice to talk with everybody. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.